Okay, I can discuss this in more depth now with Muhannad Ayyash, who's a professor of sociology at Mount Royal University. Welcome to you, Muhannad. Let's talk about the fact that there's now open dissent coming from, yes, reservists, but also retired Air Force pilots, so people who have seen action and may well have fought in the current conflict. And the fact that this is so open, signing a petition saying that they want the conflict to end and they want the hostages to be returned. Just how much pressure does that put on Benjamin Netanyahu and his government?
Thank you so much for having me. Now, to put that in perspective, we have to understand here that this is a small minority. I believe something like 60 of the people who signed are active. Many of them are retired. So it's still a small minority, but it is reflecting the general mood within Israeli society that the ceasefire should not have been broken by the Israeli government, that they do want all the hostages returned. But we have to understand that the majority of Israeli society supports the ceasefire just to return the hostages. The majority are okay with resuming the war once the hostages are returned. This is a critical point to highlight. Another really important point that Palestinian journalist Noor Oudeh highlighted this morning is that the last time something like this happened was in 2003, where Israeli Air Force reservists and active soldiers wrote an open letter as well, condemning at the time or saying that they oppose the Israeli government's policy of targeted assassinations. The reason they stated why they were against that policy was because they were basically being asked to massacre tens of people and many Palestinian civilians whenever they targeted one individual. And the most important point here is to compare that letter with this one. So 22 years ago, that letter was saying that they don't want to do this because it is morally and legally wrong to kill Palestinian civilians in targeting one individual leader. And they even raised the point that the Israeli occupation was corrupting Israeli society and that these were immoral and illegal actions. Jump 22 years later now, none of that discourse exists. This whole letter is framed as they need to stop this war because it is going to hurt the Israeli hostages. There's no mention of this being immoral, illegal. There's a passing reference to civilians, but there's no reason to believe that the reservists who signed on this letter believe that the war should stop. They simply wanted to stop to return all the hostages, after which they can continue their genocide of the Palestinian people. So it just shows you what those last 22 years of complete impunity for the Israeli state, how much that has moved the goalposts. There's not even moral rejection of the complete massacre of Palestinian civilians that we see today.
Muhannad, these military members and also members of the public who've protested regularly, calling for the release of the hostages. The fact that there was a ceasefire in place and the fact that the next phase, phase 2, would have included the release of all the existing hostages, the remaining hostages. The fact that all Netanyahu had to do was just go to phase 2 and all those protesters would have got what they wanted. They could almost touch it. The release of all the hostages, the fact that Netanyahu unilaterally decided to take that away from them, do you think that has increased the levels of their frustration?
Oh, absolutely. There's certainly frustration within the Israeli public against the Netanyahu government and his approach and his coalition's approach to the ceasefire deal. There's even, some polls that suggest even people who support his coalition that there's a, 50% of or 54% of them wanted the ceasefire to continue so that the hostages would be returned. But again, the overwhelming majority of those people also want the resumption of the war after the hostages are returned. Now, what is basically now happening is that there are cleavages within Israeli society around this issue. There are increasing frustrations with Netanyahu's approach. The opposition is trying to really take political advantage of this in raising their profile, advancing their electoral politics. So that is all real, and that is all happening within Israeli society. But as I mentioned before, don't look for that as a way to end the genocidal war altogether, because just look at how far those posts have been moved, where there is no widespread Israeli rejection of the inhuman way in which they have been acting towards Palestinians for decades, but certainly within the last year and a half. So I suspect that we already seen that the military is saying that they're going to, basically remove these people from active duty. Netanyahu has basically come out very strongly in his rhetoric against them. I don't see this as a budding movement towards something bigger in the near future. I do think that the Israeli state will continue on with the genocide business as usual, and I think Netanyahu will continue to basically ignore these protests and these feelings and sentiments that I'm sure are present within the army as well. I don't see any path towards stopping him unless it is coming from the outside. You cannot depend on Israeli society to stop this genocide. The pressure has to come from outside.
Muhannad, thank you. My guest is Muhannad Ayyash, Professor of Sociology at Mount Royal University.
My pleasure. Thank you.